You all set?
Ready?
Good afternoon. My name is Jeremy Senser. I'm the Vice President of Providence Teachers Union and also an organizer for the union. And it gives me such great pleasure today to have the honor of introducing the candidate the Providence Teachers Union has endorsed for Mayor of Providence. Nirva LaFortune is not only an impeccably qualified candidate with both the background and the vision to lead the city and to take on probably the greatest challenge and the greatest need that we have, that in creating the schools that our kids and families deserve. It's with particular pride that we make this endorsement, because not only does she have the qualifications beyond reproach to do the job, but she's a graduate of Mount Pleasant High School. She's one of our students. She's also a parent of two students who attended Providence Public Schools, one who is still attending schools, and with this endorsement, we're standing behind the candidate with a plan to move the district forward and create those schools that our students and families deserve. And with that, I want to turn the microphone over to Councilwoman Nirva LaFortune, the next mayor of Providence.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you to all the teachers who are here, including one of my former teachers. She still looks fabulous, Ms. Valerie Ranglin, and friends who are teachers and neighbors, and our kids go to school together, and just all our teachers who can't be here because this is the second week of school, and we know how challenging it is just to get started, and many teachers are staying after school to prepare lessons. So I thank them and thank the Teachers Union for endorsing me, one of their own. So my name is Nirva LaFortune, and I'm running to be the next mayor of Providence. One of the people that I admire and I've always looked up to is Mary McLeod Bethune, and she herself was an educator. So I want to start with a quote by Mary McLeod Bethune, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, and it's, "I leave you love, I leave you hope, I leave you the challenge of developing confidence in one another. I leave you a thirst for education, I leave you respect for the use of power, I leave you faith, I leave you racial dignity, I leave you a desire to live harmoniously with your fellow men, I leave you finally a responsibility to our young people." She also says we have a powerful potential in our youth, and we must have the courage to change old ideas and practices so that we may direct their power towards good ends. I open with this quote because I went to Bethune-Cookman College, founded by Mary McLeod Bethune, a former cotton picker who became a businesswoman, a champion of racial and gender equality, the highest ranking African-American woman in government, and also a lifelong educator. She started off as a teacher in South Carolina on October 3rd, 1904. Mary McLeod Bethune opened the Daytona Literary and Industrial Training School for Negro Girls, which became Bethune-Cookman College when I attended, and now Bethune-Cookman University. It was the late Miss B. Wiggins, a former teacher and Providence Public School educator and administrator, who encouraged me to apply to an HBCU. She wanted me to apply to Tuskegee University, but was very happy that I chose Bethune-Cookman College. And it was Miss Rosemary Bernstein, a now retired PPSD teacher and guidance counselor, who drove me to Daytona Beach, Florida, to continue my educational journey post-high school. Teachers have played a vital role in my life, from the Carter Daycare Center on Public Street, to pre-K at the Urban League on Prairie, to kindergarten and third grade at St. Mary's, to Pleasant View Elementary, where I started in fourth grade, and Miss O'Rourke made math less intimidating. It was at Nathaniel Green School, middle school, where I finally realized I was different and also undocumented, and Miss Farrell encouraged and provided the space for me to read and write and enjoy science. There also, Miss Vadio, although I know I drove her crazy, never made me feel ashamed of who I was, and Ms. Wendowski, now also retired, taught me French, but also grace and poise. Miss Berger introduced me to theater and dance and showed me that arts can be transformative and is a language that is accessible to all. And at Mount Pleasant High School, Miss McCabe's class, I discovered my power and love language through the words of Zora Neale Hurston. Although I did not have her, Miss Tavares became a mentor, and Miss Valerie Ranglin Brown, who is also here, was not just our teacher, but also our school aunt. Miss Turnipseed, who also was part of my church family, would see us at services, but with her eyes always reminded me who I was, and I certainly acted accordingly. And was Mr. Saucia, who told me that I was going places, and I believed him. And finally, Mr. Rayo taught me a tall, skinny girl can be powerful, and that strength comes from discipline, good form, and it's deep inside. I am here today because of my parents' hard work, failures, and ups and downs, and most relevant for today's endorsement, my teachers. Those who took the responsibility, as Mary McLeod Bethune said, to ensure that they provided me with the support, the tools, and resources so that I was able to continue to move forward. It is with honor that the same people who provided me with the educational foundation that led to me being at this juncture, running to be our capital city's mayor, and who I have entrusted with my own children, have chosen to endorse their student, a product of Providence Public Schools. Like Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune stated in her last will and statement, again, we have a responsibility to our young people, and that it is to provide them with a quality education and the resources and tools they need to thrive. We must ensure that our students have access to tools and resources to help them learn in and outside of the classroom through high quality before and after school programs, practical and experiential learning opportunities, learning in safe, clean 21st century buildings and environments where they have access to arts, mentorship, job training, and a pathway to college or the workforce. The time is now to elect a mayor who is also a mom and an educator, and who's committed to working with our teachers, students, parents, partners to set the foundation to transform our school. One thing I want to say is that right here where we're doing this press conference, many years ago a young man was shot and killed. His name was William Parson. I will never forget that. William Parson died, but also the young man that took his life and pulled the trigger was a Providence Public School kid as well, who fell through the cracks. That day, we lost two beautiful young people. And I went to this young man's funeral, and I'll never forget, before you got to the casket, there was a letter, I guess, he wrote to himself, and in the letter he said that he was going to choose his friends wisely, and he was going to work hard to be successful. This is a reminder that our educational system is important, and we need leaders who are going to invest in our public schools, who are going to invest in our students, who are going to invest in our teachers, so that every single child, regardless of what neighborhood they live in, regardless of their socioeconomic background or who they are, have access to a quality education so that they can thrive and they can live out their lives the way it should be lived out. I could not be more grateful today to have the Providence Teachers Union and to have them here supporting me. We can truly transform our educational system together. I am a product of our schools, and I understand the importance of these tools and resources and where it can lead if we invest in our teachers, we invest in our students, we invest in our schools and our families. And finally, a final announcement. Team Nirva will have our Get Out the Victory barbecue and ice cream truck, this Saturday, September 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. at 159 West Clifford. This event is free, so please come and join us. And we also need people to sign up to help us get out to vote so we can make it to September 13th and win this election. But again, we're tired of the status quo. We need a mayor who is willing to prioritize our educational system. And I just want to close out because sometimes, we don't say it enough. I want to thank all our teachers who have taught me, our teachers who are teaching our students in Providence, our teachers who are teaching my children. Because the reality is, without teachers, our school systems won't function. And it's hard work. I learned through the pandemic that I could never be a teacher. I don't have the patience at all. And so I just thank all our teachers and thank you for the work that you do in supporting our students, educating our students, and educating my child. So thank you, and thank you for this endorsement.
Can you talk a little bit about, or maybe the union representative can, a little bit about the endorsement process? I understand there's an interview, questions. What sort of questions, if you can like run through some of the big ones? What kind of things you talk about?
Oh, I don't know. So it was a tough process, actually. They were tough.
Well, your teacher's not gonna,
I mean, yeah.
doesn't let people off the hook.
Yeah, they held me accountable. So the process was really just figuring out who would be the best person that is going to prioritize education. And it was a quite fair process, and I thought the questions were really good. I can't remember specifically what the questions were, but they were focused on, what type of investments you're going to make in our educational system, asking questions about, I talked a bit about transitioning our schools back to local control, how that would look like, supporting our students, also supporting our teachers, the conditions of our buildings, what we're going to do to ensure that students are learning in clean and safe 21st century environments, and teachers are able to teach in those environments. Just questions regarding that. And it was really focused on what type of mayor are you going to be, and what types of tools and resources you're going to use to ensure that we have the support that we need, and that you're going to prioritize our educational system so we're able to deliver a quality education to our kids.
As part of this process, were there any commitments that you made to the union regarding actions you would take when in office regarding education?
Well, I will say the only commitment that I made was the commitments that I outlined in my educational plan. I talked about creating, because this is part of the turnaround plan, right? We need a pathway to reach those goals. I talked a bit about my teacher residency program, supporting efforts for more teachers who want to teach in Providence, but to also live in the city. But the biggest commitment that I made was that I'm going to prioritize our schools and our educational system.
Give us an example.
Excuse me?
One example, what you want to do to prioritize the school?
Well, so one thing that I outlined in my educational plan is a teacher residency program. When I went to Mount Pleasant High School, there was a teacher academy. It still exists today. It's been underfunded for years. And we've been talking about a teacher shortage in the city of Providence, but the teacher shortage is a national problem. And so this is an opportunity for us to really invest in that teacher academy, work in partnership with Rhode Island College as well as PC and Brown University to create a pipeline of teachers, particularly teachers from Providence. And also another thing I talked about is really investing in multi-language learners. English was not my first language. Now it's become my first language, but English was actually my third language. And so within the district, over 100 languages are spoken by students and families. So we need teachers who are certified in multi-language, MLL teachers. But we need to make sure that there's funding to support certification, because teachers have their own families, and it's expensive to go back to school. And we know teachers are not rich people. So it's important that we're also working with the state to allocate fundings for that. And finally, investments in before and after school programs, which is also outlined in my educational plan, to partner with programs like PASA. We have New Urban Arts, we have PSU, we have other opportunities, but rather than do things in silos, really work collaboratively to ensure that students have opportunities before and after school.
Quick question, in general, more of a broader question. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about actually having to have governed and engaged in the governmental process during arguably the most difficult 2 or 3 years in the city of Providence's history, not just because of the pandemic, but because of the schools and the Johns Hopkins report and everything else that's going on in the city, versus, say, candidates who can only talk about governing.
Yeah, right. So, it's been a very difficult time these past few years, but I guess I work in higher education and education in general. Just working in education, there's always things that are changing. There's crises that you have to be ready for. It has been challenging because we, did not expect this pandemic to last so long. And two, what this pandemic did was further illuminate the disparities that already existed within our city, within the nation. And so what it taught me was the importance of, we can't just talk the talk, but we have to actually prioritize key initiatives that supports particularly people of marginalized communities, marginalized via socioeconomic or race, ethnicity, language barriers, and make some real investments. And also sustainable investments as well. So for me, it taught me a different style of leadership, the importance of collaboration, but also being on your toes, because there were so many changes that happened. We had to respond to crisis on a regular basis. And I took action. I mean, if you think about it, we've been talking about, I'll take a step back. The first set of ARPA funds, the process was not a very open and transparent process when the council leadership decided to allocate the funds. That's why I took action, and I made sure that I introduced legislation to create the task force, in which I served on. And we had the most robust community engagement process in the state, and more participants who filled out the survey than the state survey. But that required us to really take a different approach and approach leadership in an inclusionary method. And so also it's things change. You have to be flexible as a leader. Things are not always black and white, and accessibility is key, because there were some initiatives that were created, but people still, till this day, people still don't know how to access them, like resources for our businesses. So it's about being a thoughtful a leader, and not just doing things to put a bandage on it, but really thinking about the long and short-term impact, and sustainability is key.
Thank you.
Can you mention a few words why the teacher union did the endorsement?
Yeah, when it came down to it, she's been here doing the work prior to running for mayor. And that was something that went beyond the process of asking questions. We do have set questions that we ask candidates. And, the fact that she was in Central High School years ago when the building was set to open with black mold, and she toured the building. I believe you went in, and she fought for that and said, we need abatement here. We need to take care of this problem so that our young people, our students, as well as our staff, have a safe place. Working on facilities at MLK, the roof, I believe. Being part of developing the turnaround action plan and recognizing that it's a strong set of goals, but knowing the details about what those goals are, she's in a unique place to be able to help get us on the path to meeting the goals. That really stood out to us. And then upon, reading her complete plan, we felt like she did have, in fact, the most actionable, complete plan. Rather than just saying, we need a pipeline for teachers, she stated, well, we need a pathway. And that's aligned with our vision as an organization of teachers, because if you want to have a diverse workforce that reflects the student body, what is more reflective of our student body than having opportunities for our students? To have those students with the opportunity to not only go through a pathway, but then be able to go beyond that, go through college, and come back with support to serve in the community. That's how we're going to diversify our workforce in a meaningful way. It was the details of the plan, and I mean, for me, I got a kick out of the fact that it was so detailed. It went right down to providing our youth with swim instruction so that they would have not only the ability to swim, but the ability to become lifeguards and staff not only our rec centers and our pools, but statewide there's a lifeguard shortage. So it was kind of that attention to detail and a comprehensive plan, as well as the commitment to long-term upgrades of our facilities, of building a better system. Students are included in that, having our own students actually doing the work on facilities, having opportunities for our students, food services, culinary, construction, partnering with not only other organized labor, but with corporations. So it was the detail of the plan beyond just the responses to our questions.
Did any other candidates ask for your endorsement?
We did interview another candidate, and again, there are multiple qualified candidates in this race, but at the end of the process, having somebody who's a parent, who's a student, who's been here doing the work and is, impeccably qualified and has a plan, it just Nirva stood out to us.
Can you say which of the candidates it was?
We did interview Gonzalo as well.
Okay.
And he had a nice interview with us.
And Smiley declined the interview.
He didn't ask for one, so we just didn't interview. He didn't seek an interview with us. So.
Can we expect to see teachers and members of your local out there this weekend walking?
Yes, so the endorsement came right before Labor Day weekend during the first week of school. We've been active making calls. We had members signed up to canvass during the deluge, the flooding day. So I know I was on my way in and got stuck over in Elmwood and then made calls from home that day. So yes, teachers will be. I know we'll be out walking tomorrow afternoon and doing anything we can to keep the momentum going for this campaign, because it definitely appears that there's momentum.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias.
you.
Sir.
Thank you.